Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Conquer the Clutter. Thank you for joining me today. And I want to tell you that today is a bit of a special day in that CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, has asked for one of their commentators, engineers, to record the sound of the podcast. And they will be picking excerpts up for their radio programming, but also there will be video as well. No one's faces will be made visible. So if you are super uncomfortable, you can black screen your little screen on our system, and your voice, however, when you're contributing to the material today, that will be recorded. Now, if anyone really doesn't want their voice recorded, could you please let me know that? And obviously, I'm going to need your name attached to it, and we will try our level best to make sure that that doesn't get accidentally slipped in. Nothing's perfect, as we well know this morning. So let's start. The objective today fundamentally is to have people who are actively working at their own pace with their own struggles to contribute what has worked for them in the past. How did you get started? Even if you're moving forward at a crawl, all right, getting started is the hardest part. So I want you to reach over and give yourself a pat on the back if at to any extent, you have started to move forward, big step forward. And then what are the things or the reactions or the services that really didn't help? This is going to be publicized on a radio program, on CBC, on a TV program, and on their website. And our objective together today is to help people who are struggling with same challenges that you are, and to give them a bit of a leg up, save them the trouble of following down those dead ends, all right? Or calling it when they're getting the wrong kind of help. And really, that help is more self defeating for them, or it's embarrassing, or it's humiliating, and really makes people feel one down. All right. So I'm going to open the mic. What I would like people to do is to put their hand up if you know how to do that through the reaction, or if you don't know how to do it through the reaction button, you can just physically put your hand up. Dawn, our co-host, is going to keep track of that for me and tell me who's next. Okay. I do want to start with one or two things, though, just as a baseline. So I want people to know there's an actual definition of hoarding. All right. And it has three component parts. There must be what the majority of people would describe as an excessive accumulation. And my version after 22, 23 years is that it isn't about discarding, it's about resolving in some way. All right, so there's a failure to resolve. Consequently, things get built up. Not every person who hoards, who creates a hoarded environment, acquires excessively. Some people don't acquire any more than the average person. But what happens is it's really hard for them not to save things. There's something that stalls out, all right, at that next step. And some people, many people, don't excessively acquire. They don't mean to save. It's the third step in the process of resolving is where the problem arises. And that is There's a failure to be able to make the decisions that are necessary. And there's a good reason for that, because that third step is one of the most complicated, and many people struggle with it. Now, not everyone who struggles ends up creating an excessive accumulation, but it's not an unfamiliar thing. And if you have had a setback in life or a health hazard, or you've got one of the comorbidities, the other accompanying factors that often accompany hoarding, if you have one of those, it can be a very steep climb to resolve making decisions about what stays, what goes, and where the resolution, where you're going to send things to. Okay. So the second is that some or all of the living spaces can't be used for their intended purpose. You can still carry out that function, but you might be, for instance, eating in your lap in the living room, and not by choice, but because there isn't any other space to sit down. All right. You may be with your utilities. You may be reluctant to call in for repairs to things that break down. All right. It's embarrassing to have people in your home and feel you're going to be judged. And so you're running with a bucket of water from the kitchen to the toilet to make a flush. Or maybe your fridge isn't really in great shape and food's going off frequently. All right. And then the next is that either someone is actively distressed, doesn't have to be the individual hoarding, actively distressed, or if they knew the true condition of the property, they would have cause to be concerned and distressed. And that can be the people who are living in attached accommodation to the excessively accumulated environment, and they don't really understand the risk that if an accident happens or somebody has a kitchen fire, they need to know that there's a lot of combustible material in the accommodation that is attached. All right. And so it doesn't have to be that the person themselves is distressed, but the fire department, children's services, your landlord, your mortgage company, your insurance company, if they knew the true condition of the property, they would have cause to be concerned. So that's why I offer this podcast weekly for free, because I know that many people are financially not in a position to pay for services. And I don't want to see something that I could do, information that I can provide to help people chip away at that at a pace that is going to get them there, even if it takes a little while. Okay. All right. So let's open who, yeah, okay, Kim. Yeah. Thanks. So what in your experience worked? It helped. It actually helped you do something you were having difficulty starting or carrying out.
I think of it as a journey because it was just little baby steps to get me into action. It took a long time before I actually started discarding. So originally I started with Clutters Anonymous, and I would attend meetings and I would just listen. I wouldn't even say anything. I was just frozen at that point and didn't know what to do, where to go. But that's where I started. And then I went back to therapy. I started working on the underlying comorbidities like my depression, anxiety, PTSD. And I wrote a letter to Gail Steketee, who is an expert in hoarding disorder. She works with Dr. Randy Frost often.
Yep.
And I said, I know what this is. I have hoarding disorder. I have people in my family who have it. I didn't recognize it until it was a little too late.
Yep.
How do I get help? And she said, I highly suggest you get the book Buried in Treasures,
Good
join
one.
one of the workshops, and try to go back to therapy when you can, because at that time I was a single mom and didn't have a lot of resources.
Mhm.
I also heard about your group and started attending all of the weekly classes, well, the weekly discussions, and then I started listening to the old podcasts that you so graciously provide to all of us for free.
Mhm.
And I started to chip away at the stuff under the stuff. That's what we call it.
Okay.
So I did the Buried in Treasures workshop, and I still meet weekly with those original 6 people, and I attend at least 2 or 3 support groups every single week. It's a dedication that I make to myself
Yeah.
for support.
And recovery. Yep.
And I started my own Facebook group because I couldn't find help anywhere.
Look at you.
So my buddy Sophia, she helped. She joined like a week after I started it, and she also has the same passion that I have to help others find support. And that's the primary
Yeah.
goal of our support group, is to provide resources like your group, your book, which I read, which is excellent for anybody struggling with this disorder. I always tell people I'm not a hoarder. I have hoarding disorder. You know,
That's right.
people with schizophrenia are not a
Yeah.
schizophrenia.
Yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
have this disorder. We didn't want it. You know, nobody would wish for this, but there are resources and help out there.
Yeah, it's absolutely true that no one signed up for it.
Yeah.
And quite often, I have come to think, not scientifically proven, but I've come to think that in many cases, hoarding is almost like an opportunistic disorder that's kind of sitting in the wings, waiting for people to be vulnerable or to be disabled in some way, have a setback, become overwhelmed. People overwhelmed is the one thing you want to work really, really hard at seeing coming and get it early. Start dealing with it early. It isn't going to lead you any place you want to go. All right. And when you are overwhelmed, it's like having rocks in a backpack on your back and having to climb Kilimanjaro. All right. So you've got to tell yourself the truth about how you're feeling. Maybe you don't understand why, but start with how you're feeling and deal with it at that point before one of the other comorbidities also decides it's going to activate, because no one comes into this world and leaves this world without some challenge. All right. And I think what Kim is talking about are, and I'm going to read the list that are commonly found to coexist. They do not cause hoarding, but they sure don't make it any easier. Hoarding then sets in, and now you have 2 things. All right.
I don't think it's any coincidence that a high number of people in our group are exposed to chronic stress. Teachers, first
Mhm.
responders,
Mhm.
nurses, caregivers. It's all of these things pile on, and then I think the hoarding disorder comes out. So it's like the 1, 2, 3 punch, we call it sometimes. Like
Yeah,
I had a
it's
best
true.
friend die, I got a lung disease, then I had an assault, 1, 2, 3 punch, and then it's like, oof, this comes out of, you
Yeah,
know, our
it
system.
demonstrates itself. Yeah, no, for sure. And so some of the other comorbidities, that's just a $5 word for other coexisting condition. Many of these, by the way, have a familial pattern of inheritance, which means neurologically, if you look back, you're going to see that maybe not the generation before, but the generation before, and maybe it skips generations, all right? But you're going to see a pattern. And now that we have the language to identify hoarding and these other comorbidities, now that we can do that, we see it more often. There isn't more of it. It's probably always been at that rate of happening. It's just that now we have the language to identify it and see it. So we're talking about things like ADD, attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, aging with mobility issues, personality disorders, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, or just obsessive compulsive disorder itself, avoidant personality disorder. We're talking about things like traumatic life events. And sometimes it's not the event itself that would take you out of the game and overwhelm you. It's that it happens at a time when you're already on your knees, you're already vulnerable, all right? Uh, Biological factors. We know that there are 4 chromosomes with markers in common. Chromosome 14 is a chromosome that shows a familial pattern of inheritance for OCD. But those other chromosomes also factor into the risk factor of ending up developing hoarding disorder. So that's just a few of them. And the other thing I want you to know is that before we start any further into the what works and what doesn't, it for the general public that will be listening to this, I want them to know there are basically 3 paths. First is genetics. We just talked about that. The second is one of the high risk comorbid factors. We just talked about that. And the third rather, sorry, can happen to anyone. And that is you're just either not the most organized person or you are a very organized person, exceedingly organized person, and you become vulnerable. Something happens in life. This happens to all of us, but it happens at a time when it overwhelms you. All right. And when you become overwhelmed, that chronically either super organized and now it's not realistic to maintain that. All right. And anxiety sets in, or you're chronically just not the most organized person. No problem with that under normal circumstances. And then you become vulnerable. Something happens. Well, that something happens is not a random thing. There is no one on the face of this earth. Talk to the people in Florida, all right now, that something can happen. Something will happen. That's part of life. And so when you're carrying around another weight, another factor, and those two collide, that can happen to anyone. So there is nothing exceptional about individuals who resort or carry out hoarding behavior. In that third path, I believe that could happen to most people. All right. Okay, so tell us a little bit, Kim, about what really didn't work for you.
Having a therapist who was not hoarding disorder informed, trying to give me advice on how to deal with my hoarding disorder was probably the worst thing.
Mhm,
So I choose to go to you for my hoarding disorder advice and tips and tricks.
mhm.
And then I have a regular therapist that I work with for my underlying comorbidities like my anxiety and depression. And
Okay,
then I went to a different therapist for EMDR therapy for trauma.
very good.
So trying to get my trauma therapist to give me advice on my hoarding disorder was a disaster as well.
Mhm.
They just don't say the right thing and they really don't have the knowledge.
They
And
don't
I would,
understand. No,
they
they
don't
think it's about
understand.
housekeeping. They think it's
And
about housekeeping.
I would say I probably know of 20 people in the world who are actually qualified to give advice on this
Mhm,
disorder, really, as far as therapists go.
mhm,
I was talking about how to try to find a therapist in your state, and it's just pretty much impossible because there are so few people who are hoarding disorder informed who are therapists.
mhm.
So I think going to people like you and learning from the experts is the fastest way to go because you will be
And
getting the wrong
safest.
advice from the wrong people.
And
And trying,
it'll make you feel lower and lower and lower
yeah,
as well.
and trying to go to an organizer first. You can't organize that much stuff. You have to wait until you clear out and reduce the amount of stuff in your home before you even think about trying to learn how to organize. That's not the first step. I tried that in the beginning and that was not helpful.
An organizer, however, can be very useful at the other end of the spectrum. All
Yes.
right. Now, one of the things I want to just add to what you said, Kim, is I don't say it's about discarding. All right. Because to me, it isn't about discarding. I think discarding happens as a natural consequence of identifying what in your environment means the most to you. And identifying that and setting that aside, no matter what it is, so long as it is not irreparably damaged or irreparably contaminated. All right. And then changing, helping the person, coaching them to change their relationship to the other things. It doesn't take a long time. People are smart. Once they know, when I feel this, when I think this, these criteria, whatever it is based, that these things are the winners. They're the one, two, threes. All right.
Yeah.
The rest, I don't I don't have that same relationship with, and I didn't realize it. One of the funny things that happens is that in a pile, all right, whatever the most important thing in that pile is, osmosis its importance to everything else until you identify what are the criteria. What is it about that thing, the characteristics, the relationship, and those three saving patterns, right? Intrinsically, it's worth a lot. It's worth either financially or to me. Sentimentally, it touches my heart. All right. It just, and aesthetically, it represents who I am. When I look at that thing, when I look at those colors, when I look at that wool, when I whatever, it's like, yeah, you and me, we understand each other. All right. Those are the one, two, threes. So in Conquer the Clutter, strategies to identify, manage, and overcome hoarding, I identify a scaling process. Now you can get that in print. I'm not pitching the book, but if you're thinking I need help, Conquer the Clutter as a print book is available on Amazon. It's also, and maybe better, available as an audiobook, because the audiobook carries with it, only with the audiobook, all right, a dedicated website with all of the tools and resources that are tabulatable, interactive. You can go back and track your progress. You can go back and track. I'm not doing that well, actually. I'm moving backwards a little bit. I want to catch it now. All right, and that website is available to you for the rest of your life. All right, which is a good way to kind of check in with yourself. Anyway, all right. Anybody else have an experience that said, this really worked for me? It made a difference, or this really was like the worst choice I made. Anybody else? See, Crystal.
Crystal has her hand up.
Hi, Crystal.
Hi. Yeah, so when I think of what worked for me, I would say it's anchored by two things. The first thing was accountability. I live alone, and with the comorbidities, the depression, the anxiety, the chronic pain disorder, it led to, well, nobody's coming in, nobody's there to check me. Who cares? Right? It led to that. And having people knocking at the door and me not answering for hours on end, right? And being afraid of the knock at the door, that feeling, the shame, and then being forced. I think the life situations that happen, at the time I didn't own my house, I was a renter. My homeowners decided they wanted to sell. So having a home inspector come in, it like forced me to step outside of my reality where you become blind to the clutter. And all of a sudden I started seeing my home through his eyes. Like rechecking with reality, right? Forced me to look up, feel the shame, and use that as a fuel, knowing I never want to feel this way again. That's how I used the shame. So I like to think that having housekeepers now is a tool that I use because sometimes I let things still get, what I consider bad now is nowhere near the worst that I was at before. But having them come in once a month forces me to still go back to that resetting of the mind. So that's something that has really worked for me, it took me a while to get to the point where I could have housekeepers coming in, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't an overnight process. But I forced myself to allow them to come in, even if I told them that room is off limits, you can't really keep it.
Yeah, we're not
Um,
working on that room this
Yeah,
time.
not that one, but the other ones, right? And so slowly over time, that has enabled the function to come back into every single room and then get to a point, where on a monthly basis, at least it becomes fully functional to the point of the room. That and then body doubling. Accountability, right? Body doubling, huge. On screen, on video, has been huge for me, weekly, every week. And it gets to the point where, yes, it's the decluttering and it's the letting of the things go and the processing of it, but it's also then this disorder is not something that just goes away.
No, it doesn't.
It's a daily struggle.
Blinders get
It's
put on.
it's a daily struggle, and you have to be mindful of everything that's coming into the home.
Mhm.
Well, okay, but I have to make room for that, or I have
Yep.
to let something else go, or
Yeah, it has to fit. There has
It
to be a
has-
space.
exactly the container, the
Yeah,
container,
or
right?
or there's a consequence. I'm in
Or there's
trouble
a
now.
consequence. And I
Don't
still
want the consequence. Yeah.
face that every day. Every day
Yeah.
I feel it, I face it. So that's the first thing I would say is the accountability part of it. That's all the emotions that come with that and the actions that I take in order to manage that. And then the second thing I would say is from like a therapy side of things, it was grieving.
All right, tell me about that.
So from my perspective, on the other stuff, right? There was so much grief that was preventing me from letting go of
Grief about letting the things go and doing the
it
things
was
or life loss of
I
people.
had to grieve who I thought I was going to become. I had to grieve the life I thought I was going to have. I had to grieve the person I used to be.
Okay.
Because I'm not that person anymore. And I loved that person. And
Mhm.
so, this is the depression, this is the anxiety, the years and years that brought me to a point of no self-love, no self-worth. I didn't feel that I deserved to live in a home that was clean, that was decluttered, that was,
Mhm.
worthy, right? So having to learn how of yourself, how to grieve all of those things and the traumas, like facing the traumas, all those things that you talk about, the comorbidity. Having a chronic pain disorder means it's a daily struggle
Mhm.
to deal with these things. So, what really works for me is learning how to manage the stuff that I have. I have to create an environment where I can let it go for a day or two, or on the days that I'm not feeling well, I can do nothing, because on the days I do feel well, I'm doing my daily checklist of the things that take care of myself and my home.
So the one thing I would ask you to look at, all right, that troubles me a little bit is somehow making the shame, the embarrassment, a positive. All right. Um, I'd like you to think about when you realized, this is a real thing, and actually it's bigger than I realized, not just a momentary thing. Now I'm actually swallowing this, I'm actually absorbing the shame. Is that at a certain point, I'm hoping part of that change was about realizing that you were worth more and that you were capable of more, and that regardless of what you lost, and you do lose a lot with chronic pain, all right? It's like sometimes in your body, I had a spinal fusion with a rod in my back, so I know sometimes, there were times when I thought my body's playing for the other team. Like my own body isn't even playing for my team to support me to do what I need to know I need to do. And reconciling the fact that I have changed But you know what? What I don't have in that physical capability, I have in the I'm determined enough that I will find another way to do enough. It won't be perfect. It doesn't have to be as big as it was before. All right. It doesn't have to be that big. I will do enough. And I'm still as strong. I'm still as whatever. Now I'm going to use getting a little more resourceful and maybe accepting help and asking for what I need. So that's where I developed when we're in trouble, that's where I developed the 3-step process. And that is, what do I need? Where is it? Because it's always somewhere. All right. And how do I get enough of it to make enough of a difference? So we let go of perfectionism. We let go of how mom said it had to look, right?
Right.
Right. If I hear one more person say you could eat off her floors,
Yeah.
I thought to myself,
was
and
good
who,
for me.
who actually wants to do that? Like, why would that be a measure of life success? All right. So it's good enough. And if it's good enough, I'm good. All right. And if it's not good enough, having nothing to do with perfectionism, then I'm going to ask for the help I need rather than cost myself something that I don't want to spend my energy or a possible injury or whatever that might be. In your case, the funds to have house cleaning service come in once a month. Thank you very, very much, Crystal. Much appreciated. Sherry.
Yeah, mine is kind of funny. In June, we thought we were moving, and my realtor, who's my close friend, said I had 2 weeks to um, get the excess out, and so I was really hustling, um, and the reason we were going to move is because our house has had problems with mold, and we thought it still did, but then I had a tester come in again and test the house, and he said the basement was dry, and that's where the problem originated. And he said that the house was um, okay, just the back underneath the back bathroom, maybe there was a problem. And so anyway, so and also at the same time, I found out that my husband's income was too high to qualify for financial aid for us to go to senior living. And
Oh,
um, um, so we decided not to move, but I had the momentum already to keep going, because I'd already done enough that it made a difference, and I wanted to keep going. So
oh, good for you. So you turned that stressor actually into the initiator of ongoing baby steps or ongoing chipping away at it.
yeah,
That is a really good thing to do, not to sit down and go, thank heavens the pressure's over and just go back to overwhelmed. That was a smart thing to do, Sherry.
and also what was funny is I actually saw some declutterer online uses that method. That's actually a method. I thought I originated it, but
No, 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 no. Well, I'm not, I don't think it's ever a good idea to cause a crisis or to cause a significant stressor. All right. I
yeah,
don't think, because you have no idea what the world has in store for you that day, that week, that whatever. All right. And I like to see people realize that this thing that has happened when, the fog kind of clears and they realize, oh, this is not what I want. And that it actually is causing anxiety. All right. Because when you have to worry about people coming to the door, when you have to worry if you're renting that white paper is going to be through your doorknob and it's going to say, we've got to come in to do this, that, and the other. And you live in anticipation of that anxiety. With children, if you've got children, and children's services might have an opinion about what the quality of life is or the safety of the children in a situation, um, that's too high a price to pay. Your life is worth more. And if you break it down and you get the best advice about how to get started, and you accept help to support you to start taking small steps forward, which is why I say when you're starting, anybody can do anything for 15 minutes. All right. And I know that there have been jobs where I've used this for myself. I don't hoard, but I've used it for jobs that I really didn't want to do. I just, if there was anything else that was there to do it, I wanted to do that before this. And I got a timer, one that has a bell on it. And I set it for 15 minutes and I started chipping away at the thing I really didn't want to do. And when that bell went off, it was like getting out of school in June, for the summer. And I learned to use that positive, proving to myself in small little chunks. I don't ask myself what I can't do when I approach a project or a job or whatever. I say to myself, it isn't what I can't do that's going to get this done. It's what small piece can I do? What small piece can I do? And I'm going to start there. And I'm going to keep chunking while I make progress. Sherry, was there anything that was offered in the way of support or advice or whatever that really you wouldn't want to see somebody else take that advice? It really didn't work?
Well, people making remarks uh just made me resentful and not wanting to do anything because I felt like that was taking on their standard for my life kind of thing. And so it just made me go the other way.
What was your reaction when you say you went the other way?
Meaning I didn't, I felt like I should, I've had a problem all my life with shoulds kind of thing. And so because I should, then I wasn't going to do it. I mean, there's a rebel streak in me.
Well, you know what? We should probably mention Jane Burka and Lenora Ewan's book Procrastination, because my expression for should is a shovel that digs a hole. Just keep on digging.
Yeah.
You're digging yourself in deeper and deeper and deeper, and you're giving yourself something to resist. And lo and behold, Jane Burke and Lenora Ewan in their book Procrastination, which I believe is the Bible on procrastination. You're not going to get a better book. I say, Jane says, sorry, that there are three things generally that start the process of procrastination: the fear of failure. All right, nobody wants to sign up for something that they feel they can't. Now, generally, what holds people back is the fear that they don't have the capability, and or they don't have the resources, they don't have the tools, the capability to do it. All right. So if you work on capability and you work on resources, and sometimes resources is getting some help, that lightens the load so that you can at least see that you don't have as likely an outcome of failure, right? And I watch perfectionism too. Somebody in the chat put perfectionism. Perfectionism is there's no point in perfectionism. And all of these rules and standards, perfectionism, when it exists, doesn't last longer than the lifespan of a fruit fly. All right. It's an instant of, oh, that was perfect. And then something, life moves on, dust accumulates. Perfectionism does not last. So there's no point in letting that be the goal. There's no point. You're signing up for failure. So fear of failure, Jane says, Jane and Lenora, fear of success. Sounds like an irony. It isn't. Because when you're afraid of succeeding, generally in the back of your mind, there's some message that you're giving yourself, okay? That if I do that, then people are going to expect me to do more and more and more. And I'm having a hard time seeing how I'm going to do step one, even though I believe I can do it. So it makes people back off. Some people back off. All right. And so fear of failure, fear of success, and the other is fear of being controlled. And those are the people who you tell me I can't do it, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. And the reverse, okay? And the reverse. So what I would ask people to look at is recognizing your own self-worth, that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be anywhere near perfect, all right? To be good enough, and good enough is good enough. And never let yourself be controlled by other people's reactions. All right. So I'm going to show you when you act in a reactive way like that, and whatever form that takes, they're the ones who are in charge. You're not driving the bus, they're driving the bus. Which means every time somebody says something and you react to it, you're not living your own life. You're not meeting your own goals. You're not being who you were meant to be. All right. You're living in response to feedback. No, you stop and you say to yourself, if I don't like that, what do I need in this situation? What do I need? Where is it? Because it's always somewhere, or a piece of it is. And how do I get enough of it to make enough of a difference that I am good enough, even though I'm imperfect? And boy, if ever there was a day for that, right? Today's that day. So for reasons we won't go into, yeah, all of us are imperfect, and having a sense of humor about it too is okay. Um, maybe that's not going to be your first reaction when the thing, dies a terrible death, whatever the plan was. But having a sense of humor and that feeling that tomorrow is a fresh start as well. All right. So if we're going to talk about things that work and things that don't work, does anybody else have something that they would like to add? We've got 8 questions in the chat. Hold on. All right.
Would you like me to summarize some of those comments, Elaine?
Yes, sure. And some of the other ones as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. Someone said, please mention that forced cleanouts don't work. The clutter statistically comes back full force and sometimes worse. Neither does blame and shame. Self-compassion helps a ton.
All
Someone
right.
also said, your book, Conquer the Clutter and Buried in Treasures, really helped me lessen my attachment to my possessions and set me on the right path psychologically. Someone else said,
Can I add something to that?
yes.
Because it's not the secret of discarding. You're not losing anything. What you're doing is and this is not a clever rework. This is, you're actually getting something. You are claiming your own space for the next wonderful opportunity that is you truly, as opposed to there is no space and your energy and your self-respect are being reduced. All right. So you are less capable of being who you're capable of. When you let things go by changing your relationship to those things, and if you need a little help, Buried in Treasures is a great book. Conquer the Clutter is also a great book. It took me 6.5 years to write it with Suzanne. There's a way. All right. There's a way to determine what are the things that don't deserve space. I thought they were a good idea. Okay. I thought books are bad for that. Magazines are terrible for that. I thought they would be the answer. I thought they'd give me a hint. I thought they'd help. Well, if they didn't, pitch them. Let go of it. By holding on to something, the promise isn't going to suddenly appear. It either worked for you or it didn't work for you. It was possible according to who you are as a person, the skills and the capabilities, and the timing as well. All right. And if it didn't work for you, then let it go. Let it go and make space for the next really, truly positive thing that needs space in your life. Go ahead, Dawn.
Okay, someone else said, joy, fun, and play. I felt like I shouldn't have I felt like I shouldn't have a life until I cleaned the house. That was not a helpful strategy. Meeting with friends for music and dinner every 2 weeks and doing watercolor painting helped me get back to living.
Yeah. Can I add a little bit there? Okay.
Yes.
The joy, fun, and play thing was something that I originated. If you want meaning and if you want happiness, and never mind this business of if it doesn't spark joy. Okay. Not everything's going to spark joy. So, and you really don't want sparks. So if you want to be happy, if you want to be you, you need what I believe most people are looking for. All right. Is you want balance. All right. You want balance. And a whole day of blaming yourself about work that you did and didn't do, stuff that you did and didn't do, that is not going to give you anything. See if you can break your day down into 3 components. All right. The first is joy, because even at the worst moments of our life, something else is happening at the very same time. But we as a species have protected our survival by developing a negative bias, right? We avoid the negative, we avoid the problem, we avoid the risk. All right, not always a bad thing to do. However, that shouldn't be our whole modus operandi. All right, that what at the same time we are in this experience of avoiding negativity, there's something really truly positive that's happening. And if we just focus on avoiding the negative, we don't allow ourselves to see the other and appreciate the other, then we lose out. There are joyful moments that have no dollar figure attached to them. That one of the funniest for me, all right, they sound very weird to quote the prospective VP, maybe a little weird, is well, I have 2 Frenchies, okay? And when one of them falls asleep, she snores like a trucker. And I don't know why that makes me laugh. All right, it wouldn't make everybody laugh, but it really gives me a tickle. I just think it's the cutest, funniest thing. Where's the joy in your life? The cost-free joy in your life. And are you focusing on it enough? We need to look for the joy. Okay, we need to keep an eye out for the joy in our life. Fun. Fun is one of the first things that we give up when we feel like we're not meeting the criteria for being good enough. We're not doing the right thing. We're not succeeding enough. We're not productive enough. We're not fill in the blank enough. Okay, there are endless numbers of things we could put in there for in a way we're not enough. That is no way to live. You are, if you're upright and you put a fog on a mirror when you exhale, you're alive. Okay, appreciate it. Find fun. What gives you fun? When was the last time, all right, you had that feeling of excitement and energy, and what is fun for you and where is it? Play. Play is really, really important. Children play. It touches the child in us. And remember that the child in us, just like all children, all right, are hopeful. Okay. They always believe that it's possible going through the checkout that mom this time is going to buy the gummy bears. All right. And they continue to ask for what they want, right? Where is the play in you? What do you need to do? Because that is the thing that reminds you that inner child in you still needs attention, still needs a voice, still needs to influence the pleasure you're going to give yourself, the release you're going to give yourself. So see if you can divide your day up into equal chunks: joy, fun, and play. The second one is, now that's not joy, fun, and play is the whole day. That's 1/3. The next thing I really think we all need to watch ourselves, that we get enough of, is reminding ourselves we're not stale. We're not finished. This isn't who we are for, even if we're at the best point in our life or the worst point in our life. This isn't forever. This is for a time. The sun will come up tomorrow. All right. It'll be a new start. And so learning and holding on to the fact that you are a learning, developing human being. You are capable of change. You are capable of learning better and different ways to do all kinds of things, even things that have nothing to do with the clutter. When you can tell yourself that in ways that are meaningful for you, you are still a living, learning person, you will give yourself more value. You will give yourself more positive time and more positive energy. And then the third part, unfortunately, is that work that when we throw our feet off the side of the bed in the morning, some of it at least has to be done. All right. And it has to be done regularly or it's going to get the jump on us. And that's where I ask, just start with 15 minutes. Set a timer so that when that timer goes off, you know you're out of jail. All right. Because nobody wants to do a lot of the stuff, a lot of the work that needs to be done. 15 minutes. Anybody can do anything for 15 minutes. All right. No, you can do it sitting, you can do it standing, you can do it lying down, you can do whatever position you need to be in. You can put music on, you can put the TV on, so long as it's not Netflix, because Netflix has a way of just making gravitating focus. Okay. And chip away at it. Now, if you're really feeling in the zone in the 15 minutes, you're really into it, I suggest that you limit yourself to one more 15 minutes, because you'll say to yourself, what in heaven's name am I going to do in half an hour? All right, no, I did so much better. I did 2-3 hours. I did the whole weekend. Okay, here's the thing about that. All right, you're probably never coming back to it again if you overdo it. If you make it a marathon, there's a very, very low probability that you're going to habituate that. And what we do the most is what we habituate. The 15 minutes isn't the trick. The 15 minutes day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 710, day 711. All right. We can habituate 15 minutes. We can habituate 15 minutes. And what we habituate will get us out of anything. The only thing that will differ is the length of time it takes. So do not do more than 15 minutes, even if you feel like you're on fire. You go and spend that energy on joy, fun, and play, being a learning, developing human being. All right. And one more little thing, two more little things. Okay. It's a good idea once you started in a 50-minute chunk of work in an area. There's no magic. Start in one corner and work your way around. There's no magic to where you start. They don't even fuss about that. Pick a corner, start. Go back to the same location for your next day. Go back to the same location for your third day. Because when you look, there will be days when you tell yourself, I'm not doing enough. This wasn't enough. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not really. Go back and look at what you have actually cleared. And that will be like a drink of water to a thirsty person. All right. That will be exactly what you need to remind yourself. You're not fooling yourself. All right. Here's one more little trick. Sit down and ask yourself, when you pick an item up, all right, you say, where is your home space? If I closed my eyes and I needed to find you, where would the first place be I'd look? And that is its home space. Something else may be there. Take it, and I know this sounds like a contradiction, take it and go and put it in that space, even if you're adding to a pile. All right. Because when you get to that pile, that thing will be there and there will be space to put it away. Unless you are creating a health or safety hazard. Try to make, here's the real key, to repeat. All right. Try to make that home space no more than 4 to 5 steps from where you actually use it. And that will increase the likelihood that when you use it, you will put it away. You won't put it down. There is something about that 5th and 6th step that makes most people who lead busy lives put it down. And now you're making today's work tomorrow's problem. Okay, 4 to 5 steps from where you use it. It's a process. And even though you're making that pile maybe a little bigger, it's not going to stay that way. All right. Any questions before we end up?
One last question. Someone asked, where can we direct friends and family who don't understand hoarding disorder? I personally have great difficulty explaining it, but also have trouble with confrontation aspects.
Okay, so I guess one of the best places that I can think of is to go to my website, www.hoarding.ca, and have them watch any one of the podcast videos. There are 4 years of podcast videos there. All right. And that library of webcast recordings will help them understand hoarding. And in time, will help them understand you. All right. So, good information has the best possibility of creating the most positive impact. So, you trying to reason with them, you trying to whatever, you trying to get them to read a book, probably not. But those videos are about, they may see themselves in it, but they're not associating it with hoarding. Those videos are pairing clutter, and clutter comes in many forms, all right, along with the more high risk comorbidities, but also other challenges in life. All right. And so they can see that it's a more complicated thing. But you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. All right. And don't ask them about it. Just say, if you really want to understand rather than judge me, what the truth is about what I'm struggling with here, I want you to go to this website. I want you to watch these videos. Cost them nothing. That's why I have them there. And because good information changes people. Anything else? Then we will wind up for today. Thank you all so much for showing up and participating, and I will see you on Wednesday. Take care, everyone. Bye now.
Can you do it? Yes, you can. Yes, you can.